the devotion which we bring to this endeavor will light our country and all who serve it. And the glow from that fire can truly light the world.
The Vietnam War took place in Cambodia, South Vietnam, Laos, and North Vietnam from 1961 to 1975, with U.S. involvement starting in 1965. This war has had many different names. The Vietnamese called it the American War, American politicians called it the Vietnam Conflict, and the Vietnamese communists called it the Anti-U.S. War. My papa, Randall Lee, told me how he volunteered to give up some of his basic rights to join the military in the Vietnam War. At first, he was just doing his part to protect his country, but further along, he realized that his real responsibility was to protect his friends.
It was more important for us to stay alive than it was to try to win anything, because we weren't going to win anything. We weren't going to win the war. We knew that. But, the only thing we were fighting for was to make sure we went home.
When there weren't enough men volunteering like Papa,
the sooner I got that over and done with, the better.
The selective service system came into play to supply the military with what it needed, more men. However, the selective service system was a little too selective. Whenever a middle or upper class person was called, they were likely to be deferred because they were seen as having valuable futures. The lower and working classes were the most common to be drafted, along with the minorities. Because of this, people thought the draft was unfair, and so, in 1969, when Papa volunteered to go into the military, draft lotteries were born. The draft lotteries were like the lotteries we have now, but if your birth date was called, you didn't get $1 billion, you went to war. Over 2/3 of the military were volunteers, like Papa, and the other third were draftees. Randall Allen Lee, my papa, was born in Barberton, Ohio on March 1st, 1951, and was raised in Akron, Ohio. He had an older brother named Bill, who was 2 years older, and a little sister called Becky, who was 2 years younger. In 1969, Papa volunteered for the Army.
It was kind of scary, because you didn't know what was going to happen.
He was in the 1st Battalion of the 12th Regiment, often referred to as the Red Warriors of the 4th Infantry Division, Charlie Company. Papa entered the Vietnam War as a sergeant.
When I first got there, I was on a base, Cameron Bay. I stayed there for 2 days before they called my name and sent me up to Pleiku. And then from Pleiku, I went out into the jungle. And that's when I teamed up with my squad and my platoon. When I first got to Vietnam, I ended up with a little tiny grenade launcher. And then after about a month of carrying a grenade launcher, my squad leader needed a radio operator, so I started carrying the radio.
In the summer of 1976, he met Roberta Lynn McElroy.
I was working at Scuba Schools of Anaheim, and Nana came in and she wanted to take some scuba classes, and that's how I met her. We started diving.
And on March 29th, 1980, they got married. On December 8th, 1981, they had a son named Brian Robert Lee. He's my dad. When Papa entered the war, he thought that he was going to fight for his country. But when he and his battalion actually got into the field, Papa realized that it was more important just to get out alive. Forget about winning, protect your friends.
Out in the jungle, we would just follow trails. We would get sent from one location to another location. And we were trying to find Viet Cong. The weather was terrible, okay, it was hot. It was 90 to 100 degrees. It rained 4 or 5 times a day. It rained 2 or 3 times every night, so you were wet constantly. We carried everything. We had to carry 4 days of food and water. And if there were other units in combat, we didn't always get supplied. So our 4 days worth of food and water sometimes had to last 5 or 6 or 7 days. And we were hungry and thirsty a lot. My squad leader, Jerry, he was pretty nice and helped me get squared away because, this is your first time out in the jungle. You've got a backpack that weighs 100 pounds. You're walking from sunup to sundown every day. So, he's the nicest guy I knew then.
Papa told me this story when I interviewed him. Once, when the entire regiment was together, they were walking through the jungle. It was thick, and when the front made U-turns, the back got a little jumpy since they hadn't made it up there yet. So everyone would get quiet, and they would take their gun safeties off, which would make someone yell, "Hey, it's us, idiots!" So they would all go back to what they were doing. A little further on, the front of the line decided to take a break, and the watch commander leaned up against a tree. The tree had a hornet's nest in it, and when he leaned up against the tree, the nest fell directly on his head and exploded. When this happened, it came over the radio, and the 6 guys at the back, Papa's unit, asked which way they should go around to avoid the hornet cloud so that they could go back to help without getting stung. If they got stung and fell, then that makes 1 more guy that the medics have to drag away. 2 instead of the 1 that would be preferred. However, the colonel who had taken charge said, "No, you can't go around. Instead, you're going to keep walking through the problem and meet us up here to help out with all the guys that are still being stung." So, everyone covered all open skin, went to help out, and tried not to get stung to death. This is where Papa realized that his rights weren't really there anymore, and orders now had to be followed no matter what. Unlike Papa, there were people that weren't so lucky, the people that didn't come home.
When I came back home, I still had a year to serve, and I was sent down to Fort Polk, Louisiana.
Everyone's lives who fought in the war were disrupted no matter what. I had the privilege of interviewing some of the lucky ones who made it home. What was it like adjusting back to civilian life?
That took some effort too, because, you're out in the jungle, you're walking from sunup to sundown. When the sun goes down, you take turns holding onto a radio and watching. Okay, you had to do guard duty. Nowadays, you walk into a store or someplace, or even a restaurant, they give you a little discount. So you keep getting paid back for your time and service and stuff like that. It's not a lot, but it's cool that people think of it and want to do it. So it makes you feel pretty good. Gives you that warm, fuzzy feeling inside.
The draft concluded in 1973, and the final drawing was held on February 2nd, 1972. The men drawn would have gone to war in 73, but since Nixon switched to an all-volunteer system, which is still policy today, they weren't required to serve. America's all-volunteer enlistment rate was 350 soldiers per day as of December 2024, 350 soldiers who give up their rights and go protect their country and friends on the battlefield. The significance of this is that people still want to help, people still care, and they will give up their basic human rights and take their responsibility to go and serve. The rights that we enjoy in our free country have to be defended, whether it's by draftees or volunteers, in the lakes and plains of the United States or the jungles of Vietnam. What matters is the responsibility to defend said rights and the individual's responsibility to the person next to them.
There's something happening here, but what it is ain't exactly clear. There's a man with a gun over there, telling me I got to beware. I think it's time we stop, children. What's that sound? Everybody look what's going down.